Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dark Archives. My name is April,
And I'm Brooke.
and we are your hosts. We are very excited to finally be bringing you the first episode of the Dark Archives. It's taking us quite a bit of time, quite a bit of effort, but we're finally here and we're super excited. For the first episode, we wanted to introduce kind of what the Dark Archives is going to be growing into and the type of content you'll be getting from us. So we definitely aim to keep it, educational, fun, spooky, personal, and just overall really fun.
The Dark Archives is a passion project that April and I have been working on for a while. And we're both creatives that share a passion for the pop culture underworld and everything eclectic. So each week, we plan to delve into a new topic that interests us, and our goal is to bring you stories that are both chilling and fun. Join us as we journey through the mysterious world that is the Dark Archives.
So for today's episode, our topic is going to be Chappell Roan. Um, she has been all over the social media for what some people might say good reasons, for what might some people might say bad reasons. But before we actually start getting into the content or what we're going to be talking about regarding Chapel, I've noticed that when people talk about her, they assume that you know just as much as they do. So we wanted to definitely go back in time a little bit and explain how she got to where she is now. And maybe that might give a little bit of background knowledge on, or it might start making sense on some of the things that has been happening currently. So, Chappell Roan was born with the name of Kaylee Rose Amstutz, and she was born in February 1998 in Willard, Missouri. And Willard has a population of about 6,500 people.
Her parents are Dwight Amstutz, who is an RN who manages a family practice, and Kara Amstutz, who's a veterinarian. And both of her parents are really religious. Chapel grew up going to church multiple times a week. They saw that Chapel had a natural talent, and so she began developing her talent with piano lessons at the age of 12. And Chapel's parents are very supportive of her.
And this is kind of where, in 2014, I think from definitely getting a lot of motivation from learning how to play the piano. She started uploading on YouTube a lot of song covers, some original songs, and she was also performing in public, just like, in random crowds. Like she wasn't putting on like a show or anything, just to try to get herself out there. But the biggest way she got herself out there was kind of accidental. Troy Sivan actually tweeted about her and how he had been listening to her song Die Young uh, on repeat for 2 months. In 2015, she got signed to Atlantic Records and she was around 17 at this time. Then, 3 years later, in 2018, she decided to move to LA basically to pursue her dreams of becoming a big artist, but also escape the conservative ideology that she grew up um, knowing from early childhood, and to also live as an openly queer woman. In 2020, she released Pink Pony Club, which, is one of her biggest songs now. A lot of people love that song. But since it was during COVID time, Pink Pony Club wasn't giving what Atlantic Records wanted, so they had to drop Chapel due to not giving them or making them as much money. This was also around the time that her and her partner of 4 years had broken up. So with all this, like, mental and emotional toll, she decided to move back to Missouri, and while she was over there, she actually got diagnosed with, bipolar disorder. Around this time when she was still in Missouri, she, decided to get more control of her life, figure out her music, and she ended up getting some side jobs too. In 2021 and 2022, she decides to move back to LA, and she still has side jobs kind of happening for her. She's a nanny and a production assistant, and she reconnects with Dan, last name on the screen, which he actually got a lot of recognition from working on Olivia Rodrigo's debut album, Sour. by reconnecting, it wasn't like, "Oh, they got back together, they started making more music." No, it was basically a wake-up call to Chappell. He was like, "If you don't figure out your music, if you don't get it together, like, your career is going down the drain." So, that definitely, lit a fire in her as an independent artist. She wrote "Naked in Manhattan," "Femininomenon," and My Kink is Karma," which again, some of her biggest songs to this day. Chappell actually claimed that going independent was one of the best things that could have happened to her because it was a good opportunity to reflect on who she was because she was creating her own music. She was, the one working just pretty much by herself on her project because, she refers to what she's living through right now as her project. And it also let her open up more about her sexuality through her music, which then allowed a lot of her queer fans to connect with her more. And she actually, in an interview with Capital Buzz, she said that while being independent, she, quote, "did what I wanted to do, released music whenever I wanted to, and dressed however I wanted to," end quote. And apart from Chappell, being very well known for her music, she's also very well known for her, stage presence, outfits, and I think it speaks a lot about who she is and how she wants to represent herself. Then in 2023, she signs with Amusement Records, which is Dan's new label, and releases The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess, which is the album that everyone is raging about right now. In 2024, she makes appearances on late night shows, podcasts, YouTube channels. This is also when she dropped Good Luck Babe. She performs at Coachella, which was really huge for her, to the point where, she was asked to perform at the White House, which is crazy, but she turns it down because she wanted, quote, "liberty, justice, and freedom for all. When you do that, that's when I'll come," end quote. Like, I feel like rejecting performing at the White House because they don't represent in what you believe in speaks a lot about yourself. It shows that you're staying true to yourself and that you're not doing it just to get more recognition. This was also the time that she what people say started staining her career with some of the controversies that she got herself into, and we're gonna, get into that. So one of the first controversies that she was basically in was setting boundaries with her fans. And a lot of people, especially if you don't know a lot of like background knowledge, you might think like, where did this come from? What happened? Like, what made her say this out of nowhere? But, looking more into it, it's very interesting and kind of surprising on why she didn't say this earlier. So on Instagram, she stated that some of her fans show, quote, "predatory behavior that has become normalized because of the way women who are well known have been treated in the past," end quote. She also said on TikTok, or in one of her TikTok videos, she's stating, quote, "I don't care that abuse, harassment, stalking, whatever, is a normal thing to do to people who are famous. That doesn't make it okay," end quote. So this made me very like curious as if, if it was only one thing that happened or she wanted to kind of state this in order to prevent anything from happening. But then as I was doing research, I realized that there was a lot that had happened before that I guess brought her to this breaking point or this point to where it's just like enough is enough. So one of the things was that there was, some stalkers that showed up to her parents' house and her parents' hotel room. There was another one where, cops had to be called on a man in 2 different cities, like the same man in 2 different cities after fans learned her travel information, which she was then left sobbing and screaming because she didn't want to sign an autograph. So all of that happened because a man followed her in 2 different cities, asked for an autograph, and she said no. Then the last one, it's also someone kissed her at a bar without her consent. I think she was celebrating her friend's birthday, and then someone just thought it was okay to do that when it wasn't. And in an interview with The Guardian, Chappell explained how having boundaries has resulted in some people online thinking that she is ungrateful for the success that she has.
So on April's last point, I just wanted to kind of mention that I read a fun fact about Chappell the other day off of BuzzFeed, and it was that she had not had her first kiss until quite later in filming a music video. And I think that really kind of hammers in how disgusting it was for someone to unconsensually kiss her at a bar.
Mhm.
Um, that's something that she is very personal about. So I can understand why that made her so upset. But I think that it's also important to recognize that Chappell has attained a level of success that is like I can't comprehend. It's a level of success that puts you at risk. And I think that this is kind of an adjustment period. And I think that fans are a little hard on her. But I've been seeing a lot of fans compare like the need for this increased awareness of stalking to Christina Grimmie, who was a singer who rose to fame very similar to Chappell. And she was also uploading videos to the internet of her vocals. And after that, she signed to a label just like Chappell, but she signed to Island Records after competing on The Voice. And a man named Kevin Loibel, I want to say his name is, we'll put that on the screen, became obsessed with her and started attending her shows and other like intimate places where he knew he could be close to her. And one day, Grimmie had a performance at the Plaza Live, and there was an opportunity for autographs after the show. And he decided that this was a great opportunity to shoot her and then shoot himself. And she was rushed to like the nearest hospital, and she sadly like did not survive. But the case really highlighted the importance of setting boundaries and hiring good security when you achieve like that level of fame. Unfortunately, there's been like so many cases of celebrity stalking that it would be hard to like list most of them. But really notable instances that I researched for this video that ended in tragedy were Selena, of course, very iconic. John Lennon and Dimebag Darrell, who was part of Pantera. I did not know he was killed by a fan. And all of these artists, like, they produce music in way different spaces, like different genres. And so it kind of leads me to believe that, like, the violent fan base or the obsessive fan base is quite diverse, which is really interesting. And it just kind of, again, highlights the importance of singers who attain a level of fame just really have to be careful. I think living as a woman, not even a famous woman, but living as a woman, sometimes you're afraid to walk to your car alone. I can't imagine what she's going through.
Yeah, I also recently read that when she wants to go, uh, like, shopping or to a thrift store or whatever, like, she has
Mm,
to plan in advance to hire security, kind of, like, mentally prepare herself because due to all the fame, she's actually, in therapy now, which is I mean, I'm in therapy and I'm not even famous, I don't have people down my throat expecting so much of me, and that kinda takes me back to the point of, how fans need to take it a little bit more easy on her, and how she's still adjusting because even though this all, like, Chappell Roan, the beginning of Chappell Roan started 10 years ago, towards, like, the last bit, it just, like, sped up so fast.
mhm,
Um And if you think about it, it almost reminds me of, like, when we were in college, like, you go to college and you're expected to, like, just make friends right away, be in so many clubs, get good grades, like, settle in, just, like, all this stuff that whether, like, your family or your parents or whoever expects from you, and you're like, "Can y'all chill for, like, 2 seconds?"
mhm,
Like, I'm still trying to remember where my dorm's at. Like, there's just so much that, and it's not even the same, like, that's just something very common, as starting college versus someone having millions of people admiring her and looking up to her, and it must be a lot of pressure. And another thing with your second point with other celebrities, it it must be terrifying. Like I think earlier today I saw a video of Nick Jonas running off stage because when he as he was performing on stage, he saw that someone was pointing a laser at him.
I saw that. That was
Yeah.
kind of crazy.
Yeah, like, I mean, obviously, it could have been, like, a regular little laser you get at the dollar store, or it could have been something worse. But I'm not gonna stand there and wait for people to figure it out. Like, I'm
Mm-mm.
taking my butt off stage and just trying to get somewhere safe, you know?
Just the fact that somebody, like, did that, whether it was, like, a real threat or not, is kinda
Mhm.
sick.
Yeah,
It's kinda
because they
sick.
I mean, it's so obvious what the intention was behind it. Like, that I don't think there's any other explanation on why someone was pointing a laser at him, but,
Mm-mm.
um, yeah,
But
it is.
sorry.
So you're good, you can go.
Going back to Chappell's life before this massive stardom, even in 2020, she wrote Pink Pony Club, which is, like, an amazing song, and obviously went viral for all the right reasons, but she was able to write that song and then go home and work at a drive-thru. Or
Mhm.
just not long ago, she was working as a camp counselor. That is a life that, like, she now can never return to. And for me, the thought of not being able to just do the things that I've enjoyed my whole life, or just, like, the monotony of, like, being a normal person, I think that that would really throw me into depression as well. So I'm, like, really glad that she's seeking therapy to help cope with that. That's a really big thing to cope with.
Yeah.
They're not normal
Yeah.
people anymore. I don't know if, like, any of you have seen the video of Michael Jackson grocery shopping for the first time, but it's kinda wild, you should watch it. They basically closed the whole store, and he had never shopped for his own groceries, and he just is so lost like a little kid, and it's, like, also amusement, like, he's having such a fun time, and to me and you, it's just like, "Oh, we're going grocery shopping."
Yeah.
But to him, it was like, "Oh, I'm doing something, like, I could never do my whole life," which, like,
Yeah.
I can't even comprehend, but
Yeah, it's like, honestly kinda like entering a whole new reality, you know what I mean?
mhm,
Um, and I understand why it must be very difficult for them to just, like, understand that and let it sink in, and if it ever does sink in, I'm sure it takes them some time. And another thing that I wanted to touch on is the way that Chappell first came about addressing the setting boundaries, and when she addressed it on TikTok, when she addressed it on Instagram. One of the comments that I was seeing a lot was, "Get this girl PR training. Why isn't she going through PR training? Someone, get the manager," something like that. And now that, because we've been researching about her past a lot, um, Chappell, like, went through the process of moving to a whole new state, risking a lot to, work on music that speaks to her and, like, represents her, and wanting to get away from people basically telling her what to do and how she should be and how she should feel about something. I feel like you wouldn't if you knew that, or if you tried to understand Chapel more, you wouldn't think that she'd be the type to be like, "Oh yeah, I should get PR training."
mm,
You know? I feel like the last thing is that she wants to feel like someone is telling her what to say, or someone is like, "Okay, like, I understand you're mad, but you gotta look happy for people." Because I feel like that's what a lot of celebrities do just to keep, a certain image for themselves, which then has a really big toll on them because it's like they're bottling all of this up, and then that's what happens with, like, Britney Spears when she shaved her head off and then started
mhm,
smashing car windows. Like, and if another thing that I noticed, is, nowadays whenever we see, like, YouTube apologies or, like, celebrity apologies, or, people that are just apologizing for either the smallest things or something really major, they have, like, the camera, like, placed perfectly in the center. They have, like, lights. They have I mean, it took them a while to make the apology because obviously they got PR training and they probably have a script and people probably told them how to go about it. Whenever Chapel makes these videos, it looks like she just woke up. It looks like she's still in her room. She's holding her phone, like, on her, like, in her hand. I don't think she went through the process of, trying to think of what people want to hear, rather what they need to hear. And I think that is very important because again, Chappell is staying true to herself. Would there have been better wording? In my opinion, yes. But at the same time, like, who am I to tell someone, like, how they feel? She was being honest about, and, like, she had all the right reasons to based on, like, the stuff that has happened to her and her family in the past. And again, at that point, since it wasn't the first thing to happen that made her want to make this video, I think she, in a way, hit, like, a breaking point where she was, again, like, enough is enough.
And the pushback in the video really isn't that crazy. Like, she's not cussing anyone out. She's not, like, being ridiculous. I think that society expects women, especially famous women, to just put up with abuse. Like, be grateful for this fame, but I'm still going to touch you if you don't want to be touched.
Mhm.
And to be honest, as a woman, I really find that pretty dystopian and disgusting. So I'm actually kind of glad that she went online and said what she said. It was very authentic and real, and there's a human there. Like, you can see the upset in her. And a lot of the times you see these celebrities that'll just sit there and smile and say everything's fine and um, just accept it.
Mhm.
So I think that it's a really good thing that there's she's pushing back.
Yeah. And another thing that honestly just came to mind is, obviously, her fame has been, like, slowly increasing into, like, the last bit, which just grew exponentially. But I think a lot of, like, celebrities who have been in the spotlight for years and years and years and years, at some point have a disconnect with, like,
Mhm.
their world and our world,
I
you
agree.
know? And since Chapel, like, she was still, no, like, working, and like you said, like, she was the nanny and she was a production assistant not too long ago. I feel like she's still, like, connected, like, very connected with, like, her world and then our world, because this kind of brings me onto, like, her next, like, controversy, which is when she was on the red carpet, and then this paparazzi said, and there was, like, an exchange of words between her and the paparazzi, and then, like, the quote is right here, what she said to him, and that doesn't to me, a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's really rude." First of all, it was him, the one that started being rude to her. And at some point, like, I feel like she literally saw him as a regular person, you know? Not as someone she could talk down to, not as someone who should be praising her, not as someone who should be honored for her to be in his presence. I think she literally just saw him as, like, a normal human being, and she was like, "Who are you to talk to me like that?" So then she talked to him the same way that he talked to her, like, she just matched his energy, because if someone told me that, I'd probably say the
Mhm.
same thing back. I'm not gonna be quiet about it because I see them as equal to me, so why not just, like, match their energy? You know what I mean?
It did not
Um
upset me at all. Like, I'm just gonna be completely honest, I think that the people who are upset with her about this need to go touch some grass,
Mhm.
period.
Yeah. And now I feel like I this kinda works with, like, breaking patterns, you know? If they saw that someone said that to Chapel and Chapel didn't react, then they might, or like, let's say that he said that to her and she reacted in a way to where she just turned towards the camera. That will literally make paparazzis think like, "Oh, if I cuss at her, she's gonna be like, 'Who said that?' Turn towards the camera, and then I can take her picture." You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because I don't know if that's what the paparazzi was trying to do, like, trying to get her attention, or if he just meant what he said. But again, if she didn't say anything, I feel like people would have caught on and said like, "Oh, then maybe I could say it. Maybe I can get a reaction out of her." So, again, like, breaking patterns and seeing that she's willing to stand up for herself as she should is, I'm actually glad it happened in a way that now people know that
Mm.
she's not messing around with, someone disrespecting her.
I think that is a really good point, and also, I don't know anyone who holds the paparazzi in high regard, like, before this. I
Mhm.
mean, we've seen it over and over again, the paparazzi crossing lines with celebrities just trying to get pictures. They interrupt their lives. They go to their parents' house. They're ruthless. They say nasty things. Sometimes there was blackmail. I mean, that's illegal now, but it happened. So
Mhm.
it's just like, why do we hold this man behind the camera who says this nasty thing in such high regard? Um, make it make sense. I don't know.
Yeah. So, moving on to what would be considered her third controversy that she was in was her canceling her shows. And I think I've been pretty expressive to like some like my mom and some of, my friends or some of the people that I work with of like I would be pissed if I was going to that show and then she just canceled because there was people that found out on the plane headed to where she was performing at. I would be pissed. And I don't blame anyone for being mad, especially when they've been waiting for so long. They paid so much money. They probably took days off. But as I was, doing research, I noticed how so much had been happening to Chappell, especially with these two controversies being not long before she started canceling her shows. And I think she said something about like trying to like she needed like a break. And that is like more than understandable, because at that point, yes, I'm gonna be mad, but I'd rather her not perform than perform and not give a good show or, just lead her like make that lead her to a mental breakdown. You know what I mean? So, I think my main point is like I understand why people are pissed, but at the same time like I don't know, like a lot had been happening to her. The only one that is just a little confusing and if there's no like bigger reason on why she canceled was one of her concerts because she had to do like a rehearsal for the VMAs. I understand why people would be so mad at that. I understand because then that was just like poor planning or on someone's part, but that should have just been it could have been preventable.
I would think so because I guarantee you, at that level of stardom, she's not booking her own events. So that second time, I feel like was, and I don't know, but I feel like from what I've read and everything I've gathered that that was not her fault,
Mm,
and they just chose the thing that they thought was the most important, which was the VMAs.
yeah.
But I can totally understand why people are upset. I've had that happen to me in the past where somebody cancels a show and it's because they're sick or they have a life event or yada yada yada. Usually it's not usually because of like they just don't care, like that's not usual. um
Mhm.
there's a few artists I could talk about with that, but we just have to remember that there's a human behind the microphone sometimes and things happen, and she's a new star. um I can't think of one star that didn't have a hiccup or a bad album or a bad show in their conception. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I think people should forgive her for that.
No, I agree. And maybe this might be kind of like a easier said than done kind of thing because I don't know if I'd feel the same or different if I was in those people's shoes that went through all that just for the show to get canceled. If it was because of poor planning, then it really should not happen again. And all we can do is just hope that's the case.
I totally would have fired whoever that was if that was the
Really?
case. Yeah, I mean that's um a little much. A little much. Like I don't know if you've seen the videos of her performances recently, like the Coachella.
Yeah.
But just swarms, like tons of people, tons and tons of people. And that's really important in the beginning of like a singer's career to get a dedicated fan base. And when you start pissing people off early, it's really not good for the star.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would have fired whoever that was. It's bad look, and really made people angry.
Yeah. And I feel like for her last the last controversy that she was in was the whole endorsement issue. Chappell has you said that you read that she did endorse Kamala at some point?
She doesn't endorse the Democratic ticket, but she did say that she will be voting for Kamala.
Okay, okay, yeah. So, whenever it came to her stating it, some things happened before the TikTok video came out, but gonna talk about specifically the TikTok video because I feel like that's what made people even more angry.
Mhm.
So, I don't believe that any celebrity should feel forced to endorse or talk about politics or anything because you don't know if that's a sensitive topic. You don't know if they just rather not share anything. And if, a celebrity is like you're not going to support a celebrity because they're a certain political party and you're not sure whether they are or not, then just don't support them or do. Like it's your choice and they should not be the ones to help you make that choice. You either listen to them or you don't. But there's no reason why strangers, even though they're her fans, they're strangers, they should be pressuring her to endorse someone. Um, it's even weird to talk about it with strangers. Why would or just like people you've just met or even family members or friends, why would someone feel pressured from people that she doesn't even know? And her whole I totally agree in her statement on there's things that are not right on both sides. I totally agree on that because I don't know a single person that agrees completely with the left or completely with the right. Even like crazy, I don't want to say crazy, but even very passionate supporters of a certain side, even though I don't agree with them a lot. Even sometimes they're like, well, I don't know, or well, maybe they meant this. Like they're not even 100% sure half the time. But, you know, like, if I'm gonna be voting for someone, I'm gonna try to vote for, like, someone that I feel like or the side that has the most things or the most things that I agree with. And, she didn't say, like, "Yes, I am vote" in the TikTok video. She didn't say, "Yes, I am voting for Kamala." No, I am or she did say she's not voting for Trump. She was like, "I'm voting for one person, and it's not Trump." So people are like, "Why don't you just say that you're voting for Kamala?" Uh, because she doesn't have to. At that
Mhm.
point, like, she doesn't have to, and it's ridiculous how people feel so entitled to get a political opinion out of someone.
I just want to add on to your point that I don't know if there's data on this, but I know other people felt this way as well. But I really do think that there was a shift in how people treated politics in 2020. Um, and even like Taylor Swift did, like, she wasn't being pressured. And I only say Taylor Swift because she's like that type of megastar that is like worldwide star. It's not just known in America. She's like a superstar.
Mhm.
And she did not feel that pressured in 2020 to endorse Clinton or Trump. So for her to come out and endorse Kamala is kind of major because we're seeing like these mega superstars, influencers, people who have the power to influence their fans being pressured to support a ticket over another ticket, which I think is extremely interesting. But again, I totally agree with you with your point of why she shouldn't be pressured. Um, and it's really weird that fans care. All of us as American citizens have the right to vote, not vote, whatever. That's your right. And I think that's a very personal right. And it's not a topic for light conversation. And I don't know about you, but I've never had a conversation with Taylor Swift. So why would I care or, take into consideration who she's voting for?
Mhm.
I know that's not the case for many Swifties, but yeah, that's just how I feel. Like I think it's wrong. that she's being forced to.
And okay, a huge light bulb just went off for me right now. Just okay, the majority of people that want her to endorse someone are people who are voting for Kamala. They just want her to say endorse Kamala, you know?
Do you think
Um
do you think it's like they just want to know that their like star is like them? Or do you think they really care about who she's voting for?
I think they just care about who she's voting for, you know, because the only time that I stop listening to an artist is whenever they're in some like deep and dark like a deep and dark mess. Like there are some things that have been coming out with like the whole P Diddy thing, and there's
Right.
certain artists and certain celebrities that I have either unfollowed or added literally all of their music on my Spotify, and that's just because I don't support that. It's not oh they support this Democratic Party. I could honestly not that I could care less, but I'm just like I don't know. It's just I don't see it that way. But
I don't think I think that's very normal. I think to cancel someone over their political opinion
mhm,
might be a little far.
yeah.
Um, I understand there's like the debate of, well, it's about rights. Like, if you vote for this person, then you basically devalue me as a person because of their policy.
Mhm.
But to be honest, the president is a figurehead, and I don't think that we should be judging people on something so personal and something that you probably haven't had many deep conversations with them about, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Like, if it really bothered you that much, you wouldn't waste your time on them, you don't follow them, and that's the end of that. But people just I don't know, they just, like, I guess, love seeing people just crumble, I guess, I don't know. But the going back to the light bulb that I mentioned, um, the majority of the people that want Chappell to, say who she's endorsing because it's clear that it's Kamala, but they just want her to, like, say it, like, something about the word Kamala is, like, what they're looking for. Aren't they literally going against what the Democratic Party should be standing for, which is letting a woman choose what she wants to do? And then they're over here forcing her to say something when she's clearly stated she does not feel comfortable talking about. And she technically did. They pushed her to the point where she made another video in her room, like no setup, no script, no nothing, because they were driving her crazy. I don't understand what draws the line to where it's okay to force an opinion out of someone or force an endorsement out of someone when aren't you the one saying, you know, women should be able to choose what they do with their own body, what they, basically that? So I didn't think about that until now, and now that's just kind of mind-boggling to me.
It's true. It's very true. It's a very good point. I want to talk about that video you mentioned. And I
Which
just want to say, I think that she owed literally none of those people that video. I understand like she's a star and has a certain level of privilege, but at the same time, it's she didn't owe anyone that video. And I just want to read some excerpts from it because to be honest, I was not offended like at all by the video.
mhm,
So, she says there's no way she can stand behind some of the left's completely transphobic and completely genocidal views, which is something that I can identify with as well. Because, like you said, each party is like not 100%, but I think that what's the word genocide really like is a huge influencer. That's such a powerful and wrong word. I don't mean the word is wrong, but like it's so wrong that it really I can understand why she wouldn't want to vote for somebody who believes in that.
mhm,
So she goes on to say that she's not playing both sides, she's just questioning both sides because this is what we have in front of us. And everyone should be questioning both sides. If we only had one party in this country, we'd be another country I won't mention. But it's good for us to consider both perspectives without animosity. Because when you get trapped in a bubble, you just check Democrat, check Republican. Do you really know what these people stand for? Are you really reading? Are you really paying attention? I think that's what Chappell is telling us here. And she told us at the end of this video, vote who in your mind is the best option and never settle for what we have. Those are really good points because every American has the right to vote for whoever they want, the best person for the job, which I think alludes to her voting for Kamala. And she encouraged her fans to use their critical thinking skills and to be part of a generation that changes things for good. This video, it really upset me because a lot of the comments were really negative. And like you kind of pointed out in her last video that she made that was in the other controversy, she came and it didn't look like she had the PR training. It wasn't professionally done. She said things that were maybe minorly offensive, like use your critical thinking skills. I think maybe because of my culture, I don't really consider that harmful. I think that's just like, hey, wake up, use your head. I don't really consider that offensive, but a lot of people really did take offense to the video. And I just want to read you two tweets, one negative and one more positive that I think really kind of sum the whole thing up. And it's
Mhm.
that Chappell Roan is an embarrassment to lesbians. You can't borrow drag aesthetics and embrace your sexuality and then pretend the party that would criminalize our happiness is the same one that protects it. This is referring to the Trump party, I believe. And there, Chappell, like, she heavily is influenced by drag culture, obviously. There's nothing wrong with that. And she is gay. So I'm not really sure why we're dragging on the point that she's like lesbian and she's dragging from drag and tying it to who she's voting for. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But just because she's not endorsing, and this person is like, they're kind of forcing her to pick Kamala because if she says that she's not picking Kamala, then they're basically saying she's voting for Trump. The other quote is, the way Chappell Roan is saying we need to hold politicians accountable to higher standards and demand more from them instead of just accepting their actions, and people are losing it, like it's not a completely common leftist take. I 100% agree with this person. I think that, like you said, each party has its own problems, and we need to demand more from them and not settle. But also, Chappell Roan doesn't have to give her endorsement for something that she doesn't believe in or doesn't feel like strongly about or doesn't feel authentic. Because going back to like who Chappell Roan is, she is like authentically herself. And you can hear it in her music too. Like it's not just somebody writing and she's a good singer. You can hear like her own experience through her music. She's authentic, the way she presents herself, even through her controversies. So I think it's, I don't know, authentic of her not to endorse someone that she doesn't 100% agree with.
No, I completely agree with that also because it's kind of I'm kind of taking it back to the first controversy we talked about whenever it came to, people saying like, "Where's your PR team at?" And like I said, like I feel like if you really try to understand Chapel, she is not going to want a PR team. She's not going to want to be trained to please people. I feel like she's trying to go against that and not displease people, but not have to always satisfy everyone's need except yours. And again, I think she's just trying to be true to herself because if you want Chapel, that's Chapel. If you want to create a whole new person, a whole new mentality, a whole new identity, that is not going to be Chapel, and it's going to reflect in her performances, it's going to reflect in her songs, and it's going to reflect in her I mean just herself, you know? Uh and another thing that you brought up earlier was, how she shouldn't have, or like people didn't deserve the endorsement video from her. Um, I think at this point, would Chapel, well, if I was in Chapel's shoes, because I can't say if I was Chapel, but if I was in Chapel's shoes, I people are gonna start seeing that if they keep pushing and keep pressing and keep poking, they're gonna keep getting videos from Chapel. They're gonna have more reason to not like her if they already don't like her. So I feel like
Mm,
right now, Chapel needs to just chill, you know?
yeah,
And
that's
that might be
a
going
good.
against what I yeah, like, that might be going against with what I said of, like, she should feel how she feels, and she should be able to express it, like, yes, but
Maybe
at
don't post it on TikTok.
no, yeah, I feel like again, if she's in therapy, I feel like she should, at this point, take a break. People are like, "Oh, she's already taking breaks, like, she's been famous for not that long, like, she can't handle it." Y'all aren't letting her be able to handle it at this point. It's insane how I don't know. It really has a lot of, like, layers to it, but at this point, I do feel like a break would be good for her, especially if she just performed at well, she just had Lollapalooza. She was the biggest crowd Lollapalooza has
Mhm.
ever had. The ACL, Austin City Limits, again, the crowd was like I don't know, it almost looked unreal how big the crowd was, like, it looked like it was fake. Um, and again, like, I feel like she should take a break, she should focus on her mental health, like, log off on, like, from all her social media, talk to her therapist, um, whatever she is feeling to just share with her therapist because that's the best way that there is to heal at this point, or to really learn how to handle her emotions or her feelings, and then I feel like she would have a better understanding on how she should handle things for herself and not for other people.
Something else I didn't consider before all of the research that we had done was that Chapel is not very old. She's part of our technology generation,
Mhm.
and she was posting, like, videos of herself doing silly stuff, like, way before, telling stories about her personal life, experiences and this and that, like, way before she blew up. Um, and so I think that with these newer stars, they kind of revert back to that. Like, unless they are managed really strictly and other people manage their accounts, they kind of go back to reaching out to people that way. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's why we see such a resemblance of the videos on TikTok that Chapel made pre like fame and post fame. No makeup, just woke up, talking to us like we're in the room with her.
Yeah.
And part of me would hate to see that like authenticity die. But the other part worries that she's going to crash. I really hope that doesn't happen because I really love her and her music. Um, but the controversy videos have really shown like a little bit of burnout to me. So I think you're right. I think a break is deserved before she gets burned out and we're not getting authentic Chappell Roan music.
It's amazing that, she grew into so much recognition, but it's unfortunate how or where it has led her to, um, because again, I don't think people would have or I don't think Chapel would be in the situation she is now regarding her having to defend herself if her
Mhm.
fans didn't feel so entitled. I don't know, like, if I was to go ask, like, a celebrity that I really like, if I saw him on the street and I'm like, "Hey, can I have a picture?" And they're like, "No," or, "No, sorry, I'm with my family or I'm with my friends." I'd be like, "Okay, thank you." I would probably be so butthurt, I'd probably be so red from embarrassment and just like, "Damn, that might be the only time I could get a picture with them." But at the same time, I'm not gonna be desperate. I don't know
Mhm.
like, that's how some people feel at this point, but I'm just like, I don't know, it just 'cause it's crazy, you know? And again, that's entitlement. Thinking that someone should tell you who they're or who they're voting for, that's entitlement. Thinking that she owes you, oh, the paparazzi again.
Mm,
If he feels like he was able to say whatever he wanted and not get any response back, that's entitlement. At the end of the day, I really feel like it's people's entitlement that have led her to where she is now when it comes to, like, her mental state and just, like, how she's presenting herself online.
I agree. It's really sad to see so much hate thrown towards someone who really hasn't done anything wrong.
Mhm.
I think we hate we don't hate some celebrities we should hate, um, for much worse reasons. So, I don't really know what that is. Like, is it because she's a success of a woman? I don't really understand what it is because when it's men on their bad behavior, I feel like we don't judge them as harshly.
So, it might sound like it's off topic, but I promise you it's on topic. So, that brings me to something I thought about to myself once I had already started therapy. No, actually, I think this was before I started therapy, but I, like, brought it up in therapy. So, whenever, like, let's say, like, you're a child, you have a mom and a dad, right? I feel like a lot of the times people get more upset or more angry if the mother fails to do something rather than the dad, just because we have so much higher expectations for the mother,
Real.
you know? Because at a certain point, if a dad puts his dishes in the sink or cleans the table or washes dishes, at that point that's like almost not common, and they're a good dad or a good husband. But if the mom decides to not do that one night because she's tired, people are going to see it as like a what's going on here.
Mm.
And that also goes with, at some point, like if there's ever divorce, the mother's usually the one that gets the custody. And then the dad is the one that, sees them like every weekend or every other weekend. And obviously, if you only see them for a certain amount of time, you're going to want to do fun stuff with them. And the kids are going to like probably subconsciously understand or like get to or like
Mhm.
think in their heads that dad equals fun, mom equals getting ready,
Mhm.
homework, school, after school club, cleaning. And it's not fair for women. It's really not fair because we didn't choose that. It's just something that has been seen as normal now. And I feel like that's why Chapel, being a woman, is supposed to show like understanding and nurturing
Mhm.
and very much like, oh my gosh, yes, like come here. Like and then for a guy, like if he gives you a wave, like that's a lot. If he takes a picture with you, that's a lot,
Mhm.
you know? And Chapel being a woman, it's almost like that's expected of her and more.
I don't know why, but I'm just thinking about Justin Timberlake right now. You
Oh, the
know,
world tour.
yeah, he was drunk and high and put people in like literal people in danger and then made a joke and it was fine. To
Yeah.
me, that's worse than like not endorsing the Democratic ticket or yelling at a paparazzi person.
Mhm.
I think there's like a level of seriousness. But it just kind of blows my mind how men can do something kind of heinous and then make a joke and then it's all good because they're Starboy, you know.
Well, that also leads into this might be another little tangent. This also leads into, like, the candidates that we have running for president right now because, um,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
okay, like, Trump, there is no, like, "Oh, it was rumored that he thought this, that he said this, that he met with this person." He says it looking at the camera. In debate, but he almost, like it's like, how far can I push it before they, like, actually think I'm crazy, you know? And then Kamala has some Tiffany earrings that a lot of people think is like a little earpiece, and they go
Mhm.
crazy. First of all, even if she did have an earpiece, at least she didn't say anything mind-boggling that has been coming out of this man's mouth. You know what I mean?
No, you're right, like, the judgment on both sides is completely different. It's completely different. Like, with Kamala, it's, "Oh, she slept her way to the top," or, "Oh, she's whatever race," or, "Oh, the earrings," kinda thing, but she was only fact checked, like, once during the debate. But with Trump, it's like, lie, 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 and people either believe them or they ignore it. And he's telling you directly what he did that was
Mhm,
wrong, and we're not judging him for that. Um, and there's hardly any comments about his looks.
mhm.
But we're not like judging these candidates on the same level is what I'm trying to say.
Well, especially because the whole part where you were like, Kamala, well, not that you think that, but that it has been said that Kamala has slept her way to the top. Didn't Trump remember the whole Trump and Stormy Daniels thing? Like, so we're bringing up, you
Yeah,
know, Kamala in that sense, but not Trump to the point where he literally had to pay someone to be quiet.
he's convicted. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing is like, I don't know. I feel like if, and I'm not saying that all Democrats are like more proper and like educated, you know what I'm saying? But like if we put the Democrats to be as um opinionated and just bold and honest about Republicans, there is no competition there. There is no competition there because there's Republicans that wear shirts that say like there was this one really offensive and sexual shirt this one man was wearing, and in my head I'm just like,
Why?
Exactly. And the fact that, that person wearing that shirt is supporting this person says a lot about that. I don't know. I to be honest, I can't recall a single like Democratic merch or just shirt that is like offensive to Trump. At some point I feel like Republicans are more focused on the Democratic Party rather than the Republican Party.
I think I have this theory, and I'm not a political expert, but I think there's been a shift. I think that, a very, very long time ago, we saw the party split. And maybe this time, Trump has turned the Republican Party into something else because they don't share the same values that they used to. And I really miss the elections where it was like, here's this candidate, here's that candidate, but nobody's going to lose their autonomy or freedom, where it wasn't terrifying if one won over the other. And I think that the Republican Party, and I'm seeing a lot more conservatives talk about how they are conservative, but they don't like Trump. They're not voting for Trump. And that's just because he's kind of extremist. And I don't think that he shares the same values as the original Conservative Party.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Where was I going with that?
We went on a pretty big tangent, but
But I mean, I think
it's related to what we were talking about, so
I don't know. I just think that it's very unfair. You have this person that's come in, he's completely changed the Republican Party, and to the majority it's just not a very good change, and people worship him even over like God, some of them, and it's like very mind-blowing how dedicated his, I don't want to call him fan base, but really that's what it is. Because before the 2020 election, you hardly saw anybody in political merch. That was something that was not openly discussed like that.
some of the And I'm not saying trucks just to, like, pinpoint a certain type of person or people, but I've only ever seen it on trucks, just how sometimes I'm just like, "How do you see out your windows with the amount of, like, Trump stickers you have literally everywhere on your
Mhm.
car?" It looks like the little tattoo patchwork, like,
Right.
and they have, like, the flags and everything. I'm just like, "Dude, that," and, like, now I've seen a lot of videos of, like, people having their wedding Trump themed,
That's
and
mental illness.
I saw
I
this one
say that?
comment. I think so, yeah.
Mm,
Um, I saw this one comment that says, "You turn," or this is a result of not having, like, an actual culture. Like, whenever I can't remember the quote, but it's like when you don't have culture, like politics becomes your culture.
right.
Basically sticking to a certain kind of demographic. But you know what I mean? I feel like it's just in general insane how someone would go that far. Because I'm like, why?
I agree. For somebody you don't even know. And that's
Yeah.
like celebrity worship to me is mental illness. It's different than having like a Hannah Montana birthday. It's more like you want to be Hannah Montana. And a lot of these Trump supporters, I really feel that way. Like they
Mhm.
want to be him. Um, and I don't know if that comes from like his background because he was rich from birth and starred in movies and did this and did that and owns this and owns that. And it's like, yeah, I can see how the average man would want to be Trump, but I think it's just been taken to like an extreme where it's just I don't know. And the ones I think that the ones on the conservative side that are the loudest really make them look the worst. Because
Yeah.
not every single conservative or anyone who's voting Republican, like they're not bad people. They're just people voting for what they believe in. The thing is that the ones who are the loudest, are committing like acts of violence and identifying with certain expired parties that they shouldn't be.
Mhm.
Um, and to me, that's kind of horrid that the other Republicans allow that to happen in their same space.
That got me thinking that I went to, like, this little, like, souvenir shop, like, near the beach,
Mhm.
and the amount, how sometimes they have, like, the shirts, like, on the wall because, like, literally the whole store is just covered in, like, souvenirs. The amount of Trump shirts that I saw there blew my mind. And then I kept looking and looking and looking, and I was like, "That's not fair. Where are, like, Kamala shirts?" You know?
Mhm.
And then now that you say that, I'm just like, no person supporting Kamala would just buy that. They have, like, I kid you not, over 100 Trump shirts because they are the only ones that would buy that. They could be 100 Trump shirts and 100 Kamala shirts, but I bet you probably not a single person's gonna buy a tacky and offensive Kamala shirt.
Yeah,
That's just how I see it.
yeah, I agree. I think that that is a good bit of why people think that Republicans are in a cult. I hear that a lot. And to be honest, they aren't really doing themselves any favors wearing those disrespectful t-shirts and this and that. Like wear your political merch, that's fine. But it's the type of political merch
Yeah.
um that's kind of offensive and the problem. And I think that as this like political I'm going to call it a political reformation because I think in 2020 we saw such a shift. People started to wear this merch. People started to get angry at each other. Never had my family discussed politics before like that openly in front of me. Um, but in 2020, that changed, and my family was torn apart by politics. So I'm personally very uncomfortable talking about politics and very uncomfortable with, um, openly saying who I will be or will not be voting for.
Mhm.
Um, I know a lot of people feel that way. Their families are torn apart by politics, and it's not something that ever should have happened. Or they're fighting with their friends, or they just decide to cancel people or can't like cancel people in real life because of their political beliefs, because they can't sit down and have a conversation with somebody without feeling such anger or judgment towards that person and not trying to just empathize with them and get their opinion and move on with their life. Like to entertain someone else's opinion but not accept it as your own is like I forget who said that quote, but like that really is truly what it is.
Mhm. Yeah. I think it could also be that maybe in the state of mind we were in, because with COVID happening, you know, people just saw, I mean, all they could do for, I mean, if you were, trying to follow and respect the COVID rules and the protocols that they set, you'd be mainly at home watching the news or watching a show or something like that. You'll probably get tired of your show, you'll start watching the news, and then you'd be more open to it, like more aware of it. Um Also, a lot of crazy things happened during COVID. And they're like, what is the government going to do? And should the government have been ready to handle something like that? Hindsight, yes. But no one knows when a pandemic is just going to randomly happen. So people started judging the government. People what?
I will say that I when Trump was president before COVID,
Mhm.
he disbanded um, the pandemic response team.
That's crazy. Okay, well, that I guess, definitely plays into it. Um, but I feel like 2020 was definitely the year that was like a wake up call. Like, what is the government gonna do? How are they looking out for us? How are they blah blah blah? Especially if you were privileged enough to not have to really worry about what was going on in politics. It wasn't until it actually concerned you that it actually got you involved, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? Um, that's my theory. Now that we're like talking about it and bringing it up,
Mhm.
also the state of mind, because I know a lot of people went crazy having to stay at home, not do anything, not to talk to a lot of people, uh, and I feel like it was a lot of factors that played into the spiraling of politics in 2020.
I just want to add that I just fact checked myself, and um, wasn't the pandemic response team? It had another name called the Global Health Unit, and it was disbanded and never reconstructed. So that's
Well,
all I had to add.
there's that. um,
I think that all of this contributes, like how deep the political veins are, that we're talking about all this stuff goes back to why people feel so strongly about Chappell Roan and her endorsement or lack thereof.
So the important things that I feel like should be taken out of this is one, don't feel entitled to get anything, especially if it's from someone that you don't even personally know, and they for sure they've probably never heard your name. Um, Number two, try to think of celebrities as actual humans now, especially if it's someone that hasn't been in the spotlight for years. Because so like certain celebrities, like I said, kind of feel disconnected from our world because they're mainly in their world. But for example, Chapel, I feel like she's still very much part of our world still. You know what I mean? Um, and two, just stop expecting so much from women in general. Like we went into kind of like our opinions and our theories of like how we think people process some, like mentally process some things. and why we think they expect so much of women and examples of how that's shown. But stop expecting so much of women because, and I might bring this up in another episode, but I have gone through that so much, especially witness not only personally, but also witnessing it in my family for
Mhm.
generations. And I'm sick and tired of it, and it needs to change.
And coming from the conservative, you know, traditional space that Chappell kind of grew up in, I think she probably feels that same way,
Mhm.
just over it. And another thing, because I love all the points that you just said, but one other thing I think is that before you judge someone super harshly and you don't know them, maybe do some googling and
Yeah.
not the tabloid googling. I was talking to someone as part of my research, and I was like, "What is your opinion on Chappell Roan?" And they were like, "Well, she's up." And I was like, "Why do you think that?" And they're like, "Well, because she canceled all these shows," and literally had no idea about
Yeah.
any of the behind the scenes that Chappell was experiencing that could have induced some empathy for the human behind the microphone.
Yeah.
So we implore you to maybe look some things up.
Yeah. This is where our little pop culture and education, I guess, come into play because I mean, before researching this, it's not like I just knew it off the top of my head. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who also didn't know a lot about Chaperone besides her top three most played songs. So we're going to leave it at that with some basically Chapel's episode. We had a lot of fun um, doing the research and learning more about her and being able to share that knowledge with you. So hopefully you guys enjoy.
Thank you for joining us at the Dark Archives, and we hope you learned something today. And if you liked us, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and tell us in the comments, how did you think about Chappell Roan before this video, and what do you think now? Thank you.